And welcome to On Purpose Astrology. And today I'm going to be talking about the lunar nodes that have just moved into Aries and Libra in a square to Pluto in Capricorn. I'm just going to share my screen so that you can see the visual of this. There you can see I've set the chart actually for the 24th of July, which is when Venus went retrograde. We'll be talking about what Venus retrograde means a little bit later in this video. But you can see in this chart the thick red line between the North Node in Aries towards the top left of the chart and the South Node in Libra. And then the other thick line that goes into that is, you can see on the right hand side of the chart, is Pluto in Capricorn. So the North Node and the South Node, they always travel together. They always travel as an axis of opposites, and they spend 18 months in each pair of signs as they move backwards through the zodiac. And this square with Pluto that you can see on the chart here is very tight, and it's going to remain pretty tight right through until the end of August. It's a T-square, which is already an intense aspect position, but with Pluto there, that only adds to the intensity. It's going to be in a kind of looser square until really November this year. So it's worth sort of having a look at some of the themes of this T-square. But first of all, what does the North Node in Aries mean and the South Node in Libra? Well, generally speaking, the North Node represents what is coming in energetically when it's transiting through the skies. When it's in your birth chart, it's about what you need to bring in energetically, what you need to learn. It's also traditionally what we need to consume. What I mean by that is to tell you the analogy of the dragon's head, which is what the North Node and the South Node were. The dragon's head was the North Node, the South Node was the dragon's tail. The North Node, dragon's head, the mouth of the dragon, consumes, whereas the South Node at the other end purges and releases and lets go. And that is a lot about what the South Node is all about. It's about the past, what you're done with, what you need to purge and get rid of. And purge being a very good word because it's also a Plutonic word. And we see Pluto here in this configuration. What we need more of, what we need to work on, what we need to learn is about the North Node. The South Node, as I say, is more about what we need to let go of. Now, the North Node in Aries invites us to step into our own individuality, our own autonomy, our own sovereignty, if you will. It asks you to question how you assert yourself. How do you get what you want? How do you ask for what you want? How do you use your power? Because, of course, Pluto is in this mix. How do you act in power? It reminds us, because Pluto is in Capricorn, that with power comes responsibility. How are you as an individual going for what you want? Where are you willing to stand alone from the crowd? The South Node, of course, reminds us that this is a nodal pairing. You can't have the North Node without the South Node. It's all about relationship. It's an opposition. They always move in opposition, and oppositions are always about relationships. But in particular, the Aries and Libra axis is about relationship. The relationship to ourselves, Aries, and the relationship to others and with others, and how we relate and communicate. We can ask ourselves, where do we give our power away? And how can we learn to be more sovereign with our own power, but obviously using it in a responsible manner, not in an abusive manner? Where do you give in to others? Where you might need to stand up for yourself, and where do you yield? And why do you give in to others? Why do you pay more attention to what other people want and perhaps less attention to what you want? It may even be if you're a people pleaser or in a codependent relationship that you don't actually know what you want because you've never really stopped to consider. The North Node in Aries actually makes you think about this. Why do you people please? Well, it's a program often that we learn in childhood and we take through into adulthood. And of course, to please others, we become, is how we become liked and popular, how we get love and how we get affection and how we get attention. But we do have to stand in our own power. We do have to stand in our own sovereignty. We do have to sometimes basically piss people off to get what we want. I don't mean to do it with anger or violence or abuse, but certainly in a healthy and boundaried way, we need to meet others and get our own needs met. Pluto and Capricorn, of course, Capricorn is a Saturnian sign and it is about setting boundaries. Pluto will say no. If you don't say no, others might say no to you with Pluto. How do you feel about that? Saying no is difficult. As I said, boundaries can be difficult, particularly if you seek self-validation from other people or through your relationship. So that's another thing to kind of think about with the South Node in Libra and the North Node in Aries. Remember, no is a whole sentence. That's a bit of a cliche to say the word no is a whole sentence. We don't actually often need to justify why we say no to something. Often we feel we need to, or we need to apologize for saying no. When you do learn to say no, it can be uncomfortable. An easy example is, for example, if you have a group of friends and you're always the one that drives everyone. So you're always the one that can't have a drink, you're the one that gets home last because you're dropping everyone off. And you turn around and say, actually, I don't want to drive today. I don't want to drive this evening. I want to have a nice time, I want to relax, I want to have a glass of wine or two. And because people are used to you being the driver, the designated driver all the time, they might be, oh, okay, well, what's wrong with you? You always drive, I don't want to drive. So you might have a little bit of a pushback, and it's how you deal with that and how you set strong boundaries that are fair. Libra is about fairness, of course. So let's look at Mars now in this chart. Mars being the ruler of Aries, therefore the ruler of this North Node. At the moment, Mars is in the sign of Virgo. And Virgo invites you to build your confidence in stepping into your own power, your own authority, your own sovereignty. Mars is about how we act. So how do you act? How do we act when the North Node is in Aries? Well, in a practical and methodical way is what is suggested by Mars in Virgo. You must also look to your own Mars in your birth chart, which will also be intensified and sort of influenced by the North Node going to Aries. What does your own Mars say about how you act, how you assert yourself, how you go into the world trying to get your desires met? But Virgo in particular is a sign that needs to build its confidence. It's a sign that can be a perfectionist. So I'm not going to do it unless I can do it perfectly. Well, just do it anyway. Just try and build your confidence by doing it anyway. Try not to pay too much attention to your own inner critic. That's a very Virgoing thing. Or the criticism of others. The criticism of others is their opinion. It's not fact. It's not the truth. It's very different from useful feedback and feedback that you've asked for. What about your inner critic? Well, that's just a thought and that's just a belief and that's just an idea. That's probably not true either. Think about what you want from your relationships. Do you want what others want from you? Or do you want what you want? Again, thinking about what you want, learning what you want for some. as well as asking for it. A good way to find out what you want is to think about, brainstorm and think about what you don't want or you don't like, and then look at what you do want from there if you're really stuck. A good way of looking at it. You'll see in this chart here that Mars is opposite Saturn. You can see Mars right at the bottom of the chart there, right at the very bottom of the chart. And if you go all the way up, right to the top of the chart, you'll see Saturn in Pisces in opposition. Saturn brings tests and lessons. So we've talked about what some of those tests and lessons might be. Saturn in Pisces reminds us that we can't control everything. Sometimes we can't control the outcome. Sometimes things are what they are, and we need to surrender to what is and go back into our own sovereignty, back into our own heart. We'll talk about why the heart is really important for this configuration shortly. And remember that Pluto's energy is involved here. Now, at best, Pluto is there to positively transform and transmute, particularly relationships, because we are talking about Aries and Libra and the Mars and Venus here, the relationship planets. Pluto's energy isn't easy, but it does bring issues to the light, to be cleared, to be looked at, to be worked on. Now, the south node ruler is Venus, and again, it's towards the bottom of the chart, just next to Mars there. It's not in a conjunction with Mars, but it's quite close to Mars. It's in a different sign. It's in Leo, and it's just started its retrograde in Leo. And retrograde means that it goes backwards. It's going backwards through the degrees that it's already been through in the zodiac. We know that planets in the sky don't literally go backwards, but from our perspective here on Earth, they do appear to go backwards. Sun and the moon don't go retrograde, but the other planets do. Particularly when it's a personal planet going backwards, like Venus or Mars or Mercury, for example. That retrograde invites us to rest, renew, review, redo, for example. It's time to take a step back and kind of think about the issues of that planet. So, an opportunity to reflect on our relationships, some of the things that we've talked about, how we relate to people, how we give ourselves away, and how we can reclaim some of our own power and sovereignty. What behaviours need to be consigned to the past? Remember, the South Node is all about letting go about what is in the past. It's in Leo, so maybe ask yourself, are there any ways in relationships in which you use drama to get attention or even to dominate others, potentially? Pluto does love to dominate. Or do other people treat you like that? Use drama or domination or power plays, for example. So again, where is the balance of power in your relationships? If you are worshipped or feared by others, is that true love? If you worship and fear others, again, is that a true relationship? Is that true love? Now, Venus went retrograde, and it's going to be retrograde until the 4th of September. It went retrograde on the 23rd, 24th of July, very close to the fixed star Regulus, the heart of the lion. That fixed star isn't shown on this chart, but it's at the end of Leo, towards the end of Leo. So what does that mean? Well, another question you might ask yourself is, do I have unrealistically high expectations of others, or do they have unrealistically high expectations of you? Again, it's about setting those boundaries and saying no if you feel that they do. We can use that Regulus energy to have the courage, heart, Leo, courage, to overcome relationship difficulties, to improve relationships or let go of relationships. And certainly, as I said, try and work on relationship patterns that aren't working for you. Now, this isn't easy work, and it's not possible just in one astrological configuration to heal things, but it's the start of that work. Aspects in the sky are processes, just like our own work on ourselves and our own lives are processes. They're not sort of an event and then that's done. Okay. So as I said, Leo rules the heart. Maybe put your hand on your heart. I always find this is a lovely way to center yourself by putting your hand on your heart. You can do it when you're walking down the street, no one really notices. But if you're feeling a little bit ungrounded, a little bit, your head too much in your head, and this self-criticism, this self-talk, negative self-talk is going through your head, or you're thinking about how other people treat you, etc. Take a breath, ground, put your hand on your heart. Think about what really matters. Think about, does love really have to mean giving yourself away? Or does it mean stepping lovingly into your own sovereignty? North Node in Aries. When you do this, you invite in love that is in alignment with who you truly are, your unique, authentic self, not who you feel you should be in order to be loved. I think it's summed up by a quote from RuPaul, who says in one of his songs, and he says it in his shows, if you don't love yourself, how in hell are you gonna love somebody else? I'll leave you with that thought. Thank you so much for watching. Please, if you enjoy this video, please, I'd love it if you subscribed, share with everybody else, and enjoy this channel. I'm really enjoying, it's a new channel. I'm really enjoying making it for you, and for all those people who've so far watched these videos, really appreciate it. Bye for now.